Part C, interval notation. Whenever we deal with inequalities in this course, we're always going to write them using what's called interval notation. Let me show you how this works. If we have the inequality a is less than x is less than b, all the x values in between a and b. Well, on a number line, first of all, this would look like everything from a to b, not including a and b. And in interval notation, I would write this as in parentheses a comma b, which is just telling me all the values, all the x values in between a and b. You're starting at a, you're ending at b. If instead I had an inequality like a is less than or equal to x, less than or equal to b, on my number line, it would look like this. And to show this in interval notation, rather than using parentheses, I'm going to use a bracket to symbolize that those endpoints are included in my interval. Parentheses are used when the endpoints are not included. And brackets are used when the endpoint is included. Parentheses when it's not included, brackets when it is. Now, if I have just a regular inequality rather than a compound inequality, something like x is greater than a, well, I have my tick mark at a. I'd have an open circle at a with the ray pointing to the right. And to discuss this one in interval notation, well, it looks like my interval starts at a. A wasn't included, so I'll start with a parenthesis and then say a comma. But notice that my interval goes forever to the right. I'm going to say that I go from a to infinity. Infinity is not a number, so I can't actually reach it, so I'm going to end with a parenthesis rather than a bracket. Next, if I have the inequality x does not equal a, this is just another way of saying all x values except for x equals a. So my inequality would look something like this on a number line. And to describe this in interval notation, actually I need two separate intervals. I need to describe the interval before a, and I need to describe the interval after a. To describe the one before a, this starts, well, it doesn't even really have a starting point. It starts all the way to the left at negative infinity. So I'm going to say in parentheses negative infinity, comma a. Then, to deal with the second part, I'm going to say a comma infinity. And if I want to show that I'm dealing with the two of these together as one big interval, I'm going to put a u in the middle. U standing for union, the union of those two sets. In parentheses negative infinity comma a, union in parentheses a comma infinity. Let's take a look at a few of these involving some numbers rather than just letters. In letter A, we have the inequality as given with a closed circle at -1, and we're going to the right. I would describe this in interval notation as, in brackets, -1 comma infinity with a parenthesis at the end. Letter B. There's no starting point because I'm starting at negative infinity and I'm going all the way to -4. I'll write that one as, in parentheses, negative infinity comma -4. Letter C, I want all the values in between -5 and 2, including -5, but not including 2. I'll write this as bracket -5, comma 2, with a parenthesis. Letter D, this is everything except for x equals 4. I need two different intervals with a union in the middle to describe this one. And I'm going to say in parentheses negative infinity comma 4, union 4 comma infinity. Finally, in the last one, again, I need two different intervals to describe this. My first region is everything going up to -3, including -3. So I'll write that as parenthesis negative infinity comma -3 with a bracket. Union, my second interval is all the values between 0 and 6. So in parentheses, since the 0 and 6 aren't included, I'll say union 0, 6.